Hey, it's a mailbag episode. Shohei Ohtani won another award. We'll talk about that. Talk about Mookie Betts' appearance on Jimmy Kimmel. Talk about the definition of a successful season and so much more. So let's get live on Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Dodger fans, this is Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you to our everydayers for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. And thanks to those of you who are with us live here on Tuesday evening. Remember, this show is free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. So please subscribe wherever you're watching or listening right now. If this is your first time with us, my name is Jeff Snyder. My normal co-host is Vince Samperio, although it's just me today. Vince and I are both lifelong Dodger fans, just like a lot of you. We've also both spent time covering the Dodgers in the press box and the locker room. So we bring you the smart fans perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning. This episode is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.com, Booking.yeah. The right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your baseball rivals. Book today on Booking.com, the official accommodation partner of Major League Baseball. Get the Booking.com app today. And jumping right in, obviously no Dodger game today. There were 4 games. The first 4 games of the postseason were played today on Tuesday. The road team won 3 of them. The one home team to win was the Padres, who played the Braves, and yet their fans chanted "Beat LA" for some reason. Whatever. But it was a fun day of baseball. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. Not going to talk a whole lot about those games. Just not a lot went on that affects the Dodgers, but there was one former Dodger in a pivotal moment that we did get a question about. So we'll dig into that a little bit later. But we're going to talk Dodgers here, and we'll start to get into a little bit of roster talk because I did get a couple questions from listeners about the roster, so we'll talk about that. But first, Shohei Ohtani won yet another award. He won the Player of the Month award for the month of September, and I don't think anyone is surprised about that since he, had a great month. I'm just looking. I don't remember if he won it any other year, any other month this year. No, he didn't. So this was his first Player of the Month award as a Dodger. I assume he won it. Yeah, so he won it twice last year with the Angels and twice in 2021. Back-to-back months, both June and July in both of those years, 2021 and 2023, Ohtani won the Player of the Month award. So this was his 5th career Player of the Month award, but first as a Dodger to cap off a MVP season, which, no big surprise. He had, like I said, an excellent month. Interesting stat that I don't think we talked about here on this podcast. Our buddy Eric Steven dug this one up. Prior to this year, there had only been one player ever to have a month with at least 10 home runs and at least 15 stolen bases, and that was Carlos Beltran in August of 2004. That was Beltran's last full season with the Royals. He was amazing back then. Only player ever to do that until this year when Shohei Ohtani did it in August and then again in September. 3 times in baseball history, a player has had 10 homers and 15 stolen bases in a month, and 2 of those 3 are the last 2 months of Shohei Ohtani's season. Just absolutely remarkable season. Can't say enough. I really do mean that we could, when I said yesterday, we could spend a half hour just talking about Ohtani and do weeks worth of episodes because there's so many little tidbits like that to talk about. But we're not going to belabor that point too much. But speaking of belaboring the point of Ohtani, our first question comes from insider Andy, who asked about Mookie Betts' appearance on the Jimmy Kimmel show. And specifically, you may have seen there was one tweet that was pretty annoyed at the way that Jimmy Kimmel started the interview by asking Mookie about Shohei Ohtani, and basically thought it was disrespectful to Mookie. They showed the clip, and it's just Kimmel. He says, "You heard of this guy Shohei Ohtani?" And then, one thing that he asks that's kind of interesting. He said to Mookie, when you signed with the Dodgers, you're a great player, and you might have had thoughts of being the best Dodger ever, and then Shohei comes along. Is that humbling for you? And Mookie handled it great, of course. Mookie recognizes how great Ohtani is, and the fact is, there are things that Ohtani does that Mookie can't do. Still, Mookie is an elite baseball player. And so there were some people upset that it was disrespectful to Mookie to start the interview that way. And so I watched the whole interview, and I think it's probably worth pointing out that that wasn't actually the very beginning of the interview. They started with a highlight of Mookie's walk-off homer against the Rockies, week and a half ago, and asked about that. And Kimmel asked him, do you like watching videos of yourself hitting home runs? And Mookie said it's kind of awkward. And then they showed a video of Kimmel hitting a home run in a celebrity softball game or whatever. So the interview did start with talking about Mookie, but then they jumped straight into the Shohei talk and really bounced around to a lot of different subjects. Asked Mookie about the White Sox losing 121 games. And Kimmel asked him, if you were on a terrible team, would you want to lose 121 to set the record for most losses ever? Or would you want to lose 119 so you're just bad but forgettable? And Mookie said, if you're going to be that bad, you might as well go all the way and lose them all. I thought that was funny. He asked him about pickleball, and he said, are you allowed to play pickleball? And Mookie said, I don't know, which was kind of funny. And he asked him, if you got hurt playing pickleball, would you lie about it? And Mookie said, absolutely. But so it was a fun interview. I think I kind of agree that while obviously a Shohei question makes sense because of the season Shohei had, I think I probably agree that it should have been moved a little bit lower in the interview, just because, that should have been a last thing. And so, by the way, while we have you here, what do you think of this guy Ohtani? I think that would have been a little bit more respectful to Mookie, but also it didn't seem like Mookie was bothered by it at all. And honestly, I wonder if it might be a good thing for Mookie that he is not overlooked. Nobody thinks that Mookie's not good. Nobody is overlooking him, but just knowing, look, even the talk show host would rather talk about Shohei than about me. I wonder if that maybe takes a little pressure off him for the postseason. And so if pressure is related to why he's struggled the last couple of postseasons, maybe that's helpful. But either way, I think if you're looking for something to be upset about, you could definitely be upset about that. But I'm not looking for something to be upset about when it comes to that. I'm just glancing at the chat. Jose says it's more disrespectful for Mookie to have Tatis on his podcast. We talked about that last week. Jose, Vince and I both disagree with you on that, but that's okay. We're allowed to disagree. I did have one other question about Mookie and Ohtani. Actually, this one is on, where is it? From Kershaw's Wrath at Gman1026 on Twitter. I'd like to see Mookie leading off, Ohtani batting second. I know it's not happening, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. And yeah, my main thought is, it's not happening. As we talked about yesterday, Ohtani, I understand the reasoning behind wanting Ohtani batting second, because then more of his home runs can come with runners on base. But we talked yesterday about the success Ohtani has had in the leadoff spot, including in driving in runs. When the bottom of the lineup gets on for him, all that. I also said last week, and I think I still believe that I wouldn't be surprised if we see fewer homers and more singles and doubles from Ohtani in the postseason, just because now that there's not counting stats left, I wonder if he will have more of a line drive approach. His approach is always just hit the ball hard, but I just wouldn't be surprised if his approach changes just enough that he's getting more hits and fewer homers, which is, even better for a leadoff man. Speed wise, he's a guy who can steal a base for you, kind of your prototypical leadoff man, get himself into scoring position, even on a single or a walk. And Mookie has done well batting behind him. So yeah, I really do think the batting order falls under the case of if it ain't broke, don't fix it, especially when it comes to where Ohtani and Mookie are batting in the order. I feel like this is a perfect balance, especially because it allows you to split up Ohtani and Freeman. So if a team wants to bring in a lefty to face those two guys, that lefty also has to face either Mookie or Teo, depending on how things are. I guess both of those guys, Mookie would be the one. But so I don't think they're going to move those guys around, and I don't think they should. I think that the top of the lineup is in really good shape right now. I'm going to come back in a minute. A lot more questions to get into, including the definition of a successful season. So thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen, and please keep it Locked On Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So you get a hunch in the middle of the game. You can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. So if you want to make a bet on football or, hey, it's the playoffs on baseball. I'm looking at the odds for tomorrow's games, Wednesday. And right now, the Royals are a plus 132 underdog against the Orioles, even though the Royals won today. And the Royals have Seth Lugo, who was one of the best pitchers in the American League going this year. He's going tomorrow. Zach Eflin goes for the Orioles. Orioles are heavily favored. I think that might be a good one to put your bet on to get your $200 in bonus bets, because I think the Royals might pull an upset there. But whatever you want to do, look at that. All you got to do is place a $5 bet. Don't even have to win. Just place it, and you'll get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed, and that is at FanDuel.com. This episode is also brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made the daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. And Prize Picks is the best way to get action on sports in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. So sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks is the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off, which ones aren't. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on Prize Picks. So download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's $50 instantly after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Hey, I am back. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Thanks to those of you who are with us live. Thanks to our everydayers. If you're not an everydayer, it's easy to become one. Just watch or listen every weekday morning. You can make that easy on yourself by subscribing wherever you're watching or listening right now. Remember, you can go beyond the podcast and become a Locked On Dodgers insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. Text directly with us, just a few bucks a month with a free 14-day trial. Also, for your second listen, check out Locked On MLB, hosted by our buddy Paul Francis Sullivan, a.k.a. Sully, covering all of Major League Baseball. That's a lot of fun over there. You can check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles on YouTube. Locked On Sports LA is where you can find the Locked On Dodgers postcast after most Dodger games, hosted by Pete Fox. And remember, you can catch every pitch of every Dodger game on Sirius XM or the SXM app just by searching for Dodgers. So with that said, sorry, I'm just scanning the chat to see. Jose has a follow-up question. Would any superstar have the opposing enemy on their show? Kobe, Gibson, Lasorda? Yeah, you know what? Mookie Betts did awesome for the Dodgers after having Tatis on his show because it doesn't affect anything. And I have no problem with people having being friends with guys on other teams. It's the nature of sports, and I think it's great. So with that said, I am moving on to the next question, which comes from Dodger Fan Weekly at Dodger Fan Weekly. Will you consider this to be a successful season if the Dodgers get beat in the playoffs? And the answer may not be satisfying to people because the answer is, well, depends on what you mean. Because, like I talked about yesterday, I think it was yesterday, sometime recently, I think that it's two separate things. I think this season has already been a success because the season is over and the Dodgers had the best record in baseball. Dodgers had a very successful season this year. And now for the second part, they have the postseason. And for me, the way that I look at it, they are two completely separate things because they measure different things. The purpose is different. And sometimes being the best in the regular season also translates to winning the postseason tournament. And sometimes it doesn't. And so yes, in one way, yes, it was a very successful season. They had the best record in baseball. Mission accomplished. Now, for the postseason, if they get bounced, that all depends on when and how and all of those things. Not all failures are the same. It's like, if your goal is to get an A+ in a class and you get a B+, it's still a pretty good grade. If the Dodgers lose the World Series in 7 games, that's as close as you can come to the ultimate achievement. So, it's not a full success. I wouldn't call it a failure if they win 2 rounds and take the World Series to Game 7. I wouldn't call that a failure. I hope they win. And that's kind of, I sometimes feel like these are trick questions, like to say, oh, see, this guy doesn't care if the Dodgers win the World Series. And I want the Dodgers to win the World Series more than anybody I know does. At least as much as all of you guys do. I want, that's what I want. As far as my baseball desires, there's nothing I want more than for the Dodgers to win the World Series every single year. I wouldn't get tired of it. If the Dodgers won the next 10 World Series, I would love it every single time, and I wouldn't feel bad at all for the fans of the other teams. Don't care. That's what I want. But I really enjoyed 2017. I thought that was a really fun season. 2018 was really cool when they had to battle through a lot of different things, barely won the division, and then ended up going to the World Series. That was fun. 2020 was awesome when they won the World Series. There have been some bummer postseasons. And so, yeah, I'm not going to say the postseason is a failure if they don't win the World Series, even though what I really, really want is for them to win the World Series. I definitely don't think there's anything that can happen in the postseason that will change the fact that I have really enjoyed the last 6 months watching this Dodger team play, falling in love with Shohei Ohtani as a Dodger, seeing Gavin Stone's emergence, seeing Gavin Lux bounce back, seeing River Ryan before he got hurt. Like, all the different things we've watched over the last 6 months have been wonderful. And if the Dodgers lose 3 games next week and the postseason is over, that doesn't really change anything about the last 6 months, because I view it as a separate thing, if that makes sense. And I'm not saying that's how you guys should view it, but for me, that is that's my opinion, that nothing that happens in October will change what happened from March through September. And I love baseball. I mean, I've watched the Dodgers through a lot of bad teams. I was a Dodger fan in 1991 or whenever it was, when they lost 99 games. I have watched the Dodgers win the World Series multiple times. I have watched them lose the World Series multiple times. I have watched them not even make the playoffs more times than I care to count. And yet the whole time I have loved the Dodgers. That has never wavered, and that never will waver. And so I don't see a lot of value in, identifying a season as success or failure based on, I think it's, for me, I can't imagine having the mindset that a season is a failure for 29 teams because only one team wins the World Series. That just doesn't make sense to me. That is, sorry, just glancing at the chat. So next question, this one actually came from several of you, and I'm just kind of squeezing it in the middle. I didn't even put it in as like part of the advertisement for the episode, because the fact is I don't really have any answers, but I feel like we need to address it. Several people have asked about Fernando Valenzuela. All we know about Fernando, and I figured I should talk about it just in case some of you don't even know that there's anything to talk about. Fernando Valenzuela left the Dodgers Spanish broadcast booth last week, and we don't really know anything more than that. We've heard rumors that it's health related. We've heard rumors about specific health ailments. None of that has been confirmed. It hasn't even been confirmed that it's related to his health. And so I didn't want to speculate on anything here, but I also didn't want to just ignore the fact that a Dodgers icon, somebody who we all love, is going through something right now. We just don't have any details. And so all I know is that we love Fernando, and we hope that everything is okay with him. And, obviously if we ever get details, we will talk about it here. But all we know is that we love Fernando. So that's unfortunately my unsatisfying answer to that question that I got from several of you. Let's do one more really quick before our next break. This one is on Twitter from Ismail Rivera. Asks, why isn't Dave Roberts being considered for manager of the year? I recognize that LA has a high payroll, but no other team has had to deal with the pitching losses, and we missed Mookie and Muncy for several months. I know Doc is controversial, but he should be getting more love, in my opinion. And Ismail, I assume that Dave Roberts is being seriously considered for manager of the year. The votes are already in. We won't find out until November who won the manager of the year. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Dave Roberts wins it. I would be surprised if he's not one of the finalists, one of the top three, because Dave Roberts is one of the best managers in baseball and has had, like Ismail lines out, all the different things, all the injuries to the pitchers and key position players. Plus, Freddie's down year, all those things. The Dodgers finished the year with the best record in baseball. Dave Roberts absolutely should be considered for manager of the year, and in my opinion, should probably win it. You look at it usually does go to the shiny new object, and there are several managers who led their teams to the playoffs in their first year as manager. I expect that that the Brewers manager, whose name is escaping me right now, that he will get a lot of consideration. I suspect that the Mets manager will get a lot of consideration. But the fact is, the Mets have a higher payroll than the Dodgers, and they barely snuck into the playoffs. So it's not just the payroll. And, I know that my opinion of Dave Roberts is higher than a lot of Dodger fans' opinions of him. But, I think that Dave Roberts deserves manager of the year, and I think he will get definitely some votes for it. And that's my opinion on that. I'm going to come back in a minute. Got a few more questions to answer from you guys. We'll talk about the Dodgers offense and a little bit more. So thank you again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. And please continue to keep it Locked On Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.com? Booking.yeah. Postseason's coming up, and if you're thinking about following your favorite team across the country this October, it's time to explore those U.S. cities you always secretly wanted to learn more about. Yes, we're talking about other team cities. With hotels, bed and breakfast, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com, you might just find your perfect stay even in a rival team city. If a city has a big league team, it also has great places to stay. I've booked great hotels in nearly every MLB city in America, and Booking.com makes that so much easier. My favorite one is actually in Denver, which there's not any postseason baseball going on in Denver because the Rockies were bad this year, but the Raleigh Hotel, right literally across the street from Coors Field in Denver, is awesome. I highly recommend you make a trip to Denver sometime to watch the Dodgers play and stay in the Raleigh Hotel across the street. It's awesome. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your rivals. So book today on Booking.com on the site or in the Booking.com app. Booking.com, Booking.yeah. I am back. Thanks again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Thanks for being an everydayer if you are. If you're not, just become one. Just watch or listen every weekday morning. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers to become a Locked On Dodgers insider. Check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles on YouTube, and catch every pitch of every Dodger game on SiriusXM or the SXM app by searching for Dodgers. You can also listen to this podcast on the SXM app by searching for Locked On Dodgers. Pat Murphy, that's the Brewers manager name. Thank you, Elisheva. I knew it. I've known that name every minute of my life, except for when I tried to remember it just a minute ago. Just glancing at the chat. All right, jumping back into the questions. Sad Bear takes on Twitter. Sad Bear Trades, says, would you take Edgardo Henriquez or Ben Kaspareas on the postseason roster? I think Henriquez is going to be on the roster. I think he has the stuff that they're looking for. I've talked a lot about how I think strikeout stuff becomes a little more important in the postseason, and I think that he has the stuff to be kind of one of those, the last relievers on the roster, really good stuff, high ceiling, and has shown poise in the chances he's gotten. Kaspareas wouldn't shock me if he's on there too. Like, we're going to dig more into the pitching staff sometime in the next 2 days of episodes, because there are a lot of question marks, and it wouldn't surprise me at all to have both of those guys on there, just depending on what they decide their needs are. They bring different things. Henriquez is a one-inning guy at this point. Kaspareas is he's a starter who's been pitching in relief, and so if they feel like they need a long reliever or a potential piggyback guy or something, Kaspareas could definitely be that guy. He brings the length of a Brent Honeywell while also bringing a little bit better strikeout stuff. It wouldn't surprise me if they both are, but I think if you were choosing between them, it would be Henriquez. I think he is very likely to be on the postseason roster. This one from Kershaw's Wrath also, who asked about Mookie leading off and Ohtani batting second. He also asked about the Astros game. The Astros and Tigers game Tigers are up 3-0 the whole game. And then in the ninth inning, bottom of the ninth, the Astros threatened. They got one run in and had bases loaded, 2 outs, and Jason Hayward came up. And Kershaw's wrath says, you both thought Hayward was going to win it for the Astros, didn't you? I know I did. And I have to tell you, honestly, I did not. And I have proof of this. Some of the people in the chat are in a Discord server that I am on. And I said, when it went to 2 balls on Chas McCormick, it was second and third with 2 outs. Chas McCormick was up. And when it went to a 2-ball count, I put in the Discord, I said, Jason Hayward's going to ground out to second with the bases loaded to end this game. And then McCormick walked and Hayward came up with bases loaded, and he didn't ground out. He hit a line drive to first base to end the game, which was, would have been my third guess. My first guess was ground out to second. My second guess would have been swinging and missing at a pitch way outside to strike out, which he did do for strike 2 in that at bat. And then my third guess would have been a line out to first base. And that's what he did to end the game. It was kind of interesting if you were watching the game. BC's in that. And I don't know if BC can attest that that's what I said. I guess I could show a screenshot, but I'm not. You guys know what I do. But yeah, Pinsanity, ground out to second. That's what he does a lot. Yeah, I've joked that sometimes I feel like Jason Hayward is flirting with the second baseman, how often he hits a ground ball to him. It was kind of funny, though, if you were watching that game, the announcers afterwards said something along the lines of, well, there's nothing else Hayward can do there. He hit the ball as hard as you can hit it. And if you weren't watching, think in your mind right now, when the announcer says he hit the ball as hard as he could hit it, what exit velocity are you thinking in your head? And pretend that you don't know this is a trick question by the tone of my voice. Just announcer says he hit the ball as hard as you can hit it. How hard do you think he hit it? Is the answer 88.9 miles an hour? Because that's how hard Jason Hayward hit it. He didn't hit it as hard as you could hit it. It was a weakly hit line drive right at the first baseman. So, yeah, I mean, he put the bat on the ball, but it wasn't close to being a hit. It was an out. And anyway, just one of the examples of hyperbole that we get in the postseason with announcers. Everything is unbelievable and remarkable and, as hard as you can hit it and all those things. And most of those things, you know what, let's tone down the hyperbole a little bit, folks. Yeah, so I didn't think Jason Hayward was going to win that game for the Astros, and I was glad he didn't. Even though I like Jason Hayward, I want nothing but success for him, but not in that situation. Let's see. I've got 1 or 2 more questions. Oh, yeah. So this one is from an insider. This is from John Tyner. He asked, let's forget about pitching for a second and ask, how does the Dodgers offense stack up to the possible opponent's offense? And this is the question, because the fact is the Dodgers have the best offense of any team in the postseason. Like even the Yankees. The Yankees have Aaron Judge and Juan Soto, which is an awesome back-to-back combination, probably better than Ohtani and Mookie. But the Dodgers have the surrounding cast too, and the Yankees just don't. And so the fact is the Dodgers, of all the teams, the 800 teams in the postseason, whatever it is, the Dodgers have the best offense. The question, as always, is will the offense show up? If the Dodgers play the Padres in the division series, the Dodgers absolutely have a better offense than the Padres. Padres have big names, not as many big names as the Dodgers, and those big names aren't as good as the Dodgers. You look at it, and you could line them up position by position, whatever you want to do. The Dodgers have the advantage. The Dodgers are the better team offensively. Pitching wise, it gets a little bit closer. The Padres have very good pitching. But what we saw last week is the Dodgers won a series against the Padres, a series that was very important to the Padres, and the Dodgers won the series. And that was because the offense showed up when it needed to, and kind of showed that even Joe Musgrove held the Dodgers offense down and then couldn't anymore. It's hard to keep this offense down for a full game. So really it is going to come down to if the offense shows up. Just like last year, if the offense had shown up, they would have beat the D-backs. The Dodgers lost last year in the NLDS because they scored 2 runs in each of the 3 games. It wasn't because of the pitching. It wasn't because Lance Lynn gave up 4 home runs in 1 inning. The Dodgers lost that game 4-2 after averaging 5.6 runs a game. Dodgers should have won that game 5.6-4. Game 2, the game before that, they lost 4-2. should have won 5.6-4. And obviously, you get what I'm saying. So if the offense shows up, Dodgers should beat every team they play. That's why I don't really care. I don't care who wins the Braves-Padres series, because if the Dodgers show up, the Dodgers will win against whoever they play. And if they don't show up, they'll lose. And it's as simple as that. So I'm not stressed about who the opponent is. I'm stressed about the Dodgers doing their thing. And the Dodgers offense has what it takes to win the World Series, because they are the best offense in the postseason. And so that's my thought on that. Let's see. I had one other question. Let me see. This one's fun. Last one before we wrap this up. This one's also from an insider. This one is from my buddy Mike, aka Jackson's dad. He says, you can't say Ohtani, Mookie, or Freddie. Predict your NLDS MVP. I will also throw out to Mike that they don't give out an MVP award for the division series for some reason. That's only for the NLCS and the World Series. But if we're talking about a pretend NLDS MVP award and pretending they will give it out, Mike says Will Smith. I think that's a decent one. I'd probably go Max Muncy. I think that Muncy, especially when we talk about, assuming they play the Padres, you've got King and Musgrove and Cease and Darvish. They're all right-handed pitchers. And so I feel like Max Muncy is going to make his mark. I also think Gavin Lux is going to have a good series. There's a lot of stuff. I'm not going to say what I just thought of something that we'll probably talk about on a future episode that I almost just spoiled here. It was about Tommy Edman, but probably talk about that tomorrow or the next day. I think one of those lefties, Muncy or Lux, could have a really big series against the Padres. And obviously they're going to need those big three to be the big three. Teoscar hopefully will have a good series, but I'd go with Muncy probably with Lux as my backup in that question particularly. That's going to do it for me. I think just scrolling through, Jose says enough of the Dodgers doing all the talking. Now it's time to see if they can do the walking. Just show up and they'll be good. Scrolling through, seeing if there's anything else. Somebody says Gavin Lux is a stretch. Well, you know what? That's all right. I like stretching. Not really. That's going to do it for me. Thank you all for being here. Had a good crowd here for a Tuesday night with no game to talk about, so I appreciate that. The chat was hopping. Appreciate you keeping me company here as I'm talking solo tonight. If you're not an everydayer, it's easy to become one. Just watch or listen every weekday morning. You can make that easier on yourself by subscribing wherever you're watching or listening right now, on YouTube, wherever you get podcasts. Remember to check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles over on YouTube, the 24/7 streaming channels from the Locked On Podcast Network. Remember to go beyond the podcast to become a Locked On Dodgers insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. It's a great way to support this podcast if you like it, and it's a fun way to have conversations away from the podcast, one-on-one text conversations. So check that out. Remember, you can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Locked On Dodgers. Vince is on Twitter at VinceSince91. I'm on Twitter at Snydog, and both of our DMs are open there. You can also email us, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or send us a voicemail or a text message to 323-863-LOCK, 5625. We are here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car or sit on your couch, tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. We'll talk to you tomorrow.